Good afternoon, Oak Grove. Happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's installment of the Midweek Update series here on the church's YouTube channel, where I just populate into your device in the middle of the week to say hello and to try to keep the church on our consciousness for the remainder of the week that we're not in worship on Sunday morning, because that's such an important thing for us to do. So thanks for taking a moment to join me here today. It's the first midweek update of the new year. It's the first one since before Christmas, because I did take the week after Christmas off. Semi-off. I was in town, but I was officially out of the office, and so Julie and I got to have some days off together. She was also off for part of that week, not all of it, and we had a little bit of R&R time after Christmas time, and so I appreciate everybody respecting that time, and it is now time to get back to work in the new year, and so there's lots of stuff to get going on with the church. We've got a council orientation session coming up for returning and incoming council members after church this coming Sunday. So if you are returning or coming on to council, please join us for a brief meeting. I don't think it'll be super long, and we'll feed you some lunch while we're at it. Lots of stuff to do in the new year. So getting back to these videos in the new year also, I am coming to you, as you can see, from the social hall with our social hall Christmas tree behind me here. And the reason for that is because I want to use this tree as a little object lesson for today. This tree over here you've undoubtedly seen it this year, is new to the church. This tree belongs to my mom and dad for the last couple years. They bought it just a couple years ago, this new artificial tree, and they used it. And my mother decided that she didn't really care for it because it is I think they call it a flocked tree, I guess. That's the technical term for it. I had never heard that term before until she used it. But I guess that's the term for a tree that has the artificial snow on it there. I would have called it a frosted tree instead of a flocked tree if it were my decision, but nobody asked me what I would name it, so... They bought this flocked tree a couple years ago, and my mother decided she didn't like it because she said it looks too white and not enough green. She knew that it was going to be, she knew when she bought it that it was going to have the artificial snow on it, but it had a little too much artificial snow on it for her taste, and so she wanted to get rid of it. And so she offered it to Julie and I this last off season, and in the summer she insisted that I load it into my car and take it over. One day that I was over there to visit, she insisted I take it home to the parsonage, where it sat in the parsonage basement ever since then. I told her that I would take it. She was looking to get rid of it, so I told her that Julie and I would take it with the thought in mind that I thought we would put it in the parsonage living room. Well, we get it out of the box, and even though I had thought that it would fit, it did not. It's a little too tall in its full natural form. It's a little too tall to fit in the parsonage living room. Plus, we were concerned that it would make a horrendous mess all over the floor because some of the artificial snow has fallen off of it whenever you move it around. But I had already promised Ruthie, who is always in charge of doing the decorating here in the social hall, and she does a fantastic job with it. I had promised her earlier in the year that we were going to donate a new tree for the social hall because my thought was that Julie and I would give our old artificial tree to the church, and then this one would go into our living room. Well, I said, let's take the one because the ceiling in here is not super high, but it's slightly higher than the parsonage living room, I think. Let's take this one and put it down here instead. So I went to put it up on the day that we decorated for Christmas, and I was a little dismayed to find that, well, it didn't quite fit down here either. It was still a little too tall. But we simply eliminated the top section because, as is the case with many artificial trees these days, it comes in 3 sections, and the top section was not that long. And we decided why don't we just try putting it up, don't put the top on it, and just kind of, you can see, fluff the branches at the top in an upward direction that kind of makes it look a little taller, you know. And we did that, and it worked out perfectly fine. We've used it this season, and this was the last day that I'll have an opportunity to film a video in front of it because I think within the next week it's probably going to be taken down. And why then am I talking to you about it? I am using it as an object lesson in the way that things do not turn out the way that we envision. I am using it as a lesson to teach us the fact that sometimes, however, God is able to repurpose the things that don't end up getting used exactly the way we thought they would, and they are still able to work out in a way that is even better than we hoped. As it turned out now, this tree brought joy to a lot more people this year than just Julie and I, or just my mom and dad and my sisters at their home. When I told my family that we repurposed this tree for the church, they were overjoyed to hear that. They were delighted to hear it. So my mom and dad paid for this tree, which we enjoyed, and they donated it for free. And so it is now the property of the church, and it belongs to the church, and they functionally donated it for free. And so in life, often we make plans. Those plans don't turn out the way we had envisioned. And sometimes we tell ourselves that maybe God had a different plan in place, and maybe God intervened in that plan. Maybe God didn't. I don't know. I didn't interview God in every one of those instances. But we do make meaning come out of it by saying, well, how can we now adapt the plan? How can we now do things differently in a way that somehow brings some kind of meaning to what had to be changed? And the result is, when my mom and dad bought this tree, they had no idea that it would bring a lot more joy to a community of 100 people that pass through here during the Christmas season, that it would bring joy to so many more than they had originally envisioned. And so, and when we bring it down here, and I struggle to get it in here because it didn't fit, the vision had to be modified yet again. So it was originally intended to go in my parents' living room. Then it was intended to go in my living room. Then it was intended to come down here to the social hall, but the top didn't fit. And after removing the top, we finally found a purpose and an application for it, and it was able to bring joy to so many people here at the church. If we can do that on such a small scale, what can God do with all of the broken projects in our lives that we started and didn't turn out the way we envisioned, but God might have something even better in store? And so that's just food for thought, especially as we move on from the holiday season. And I talked in my sermon this last Sunday about how, I don't know about all of you, but I am getting hit a little bit by the post-holiday blues. You know, I'm a little blue that Christmas is gone already. It came and went so quick this year, and you know, it's time to move on already. And I'm just thinking, no, Christmas, you just came. I don't want you to go already. But we need to keep looking for the ways that we can bring a little bit of light and joy into our lives, even by repurposing failed projects from the past. And am I trying to hint or imply anything for Oak Grove's future? No, don't read anything into my words. There's no hidden agenda there. I'm simply saying that if God can find a third or fourth chance for this poor tree, then God can probably find a way to take my mistakes or my half-completed projects in life and make something out of them. Now, I will make one more note here in this video. Why, Pastor, are you not talking about some of the hot button topics that are going on in the news media right now? Things that are going on in the international world regarding our country's conduct in Venezuela as of late, or as I record this on Thursday the 8th, why are you not talking, Pastor, about the incident with the woman that was shot and killed by ICE yesterday? If you want to know how I feel about those things, you are welcome to make an appointment to speak with me in private. Come into my office and we'll chat. I'll make you a cup of coffee. And I will tell you what my opinion is about any hot button topic that you want to know. I'll give you a hint. Whatever you're expecting me to say, you're probably going to be a little disappointed, because I'm not going to side with, whatever extreme end of the spectrum you're expecting me to hold. My answer is probably going to disappoint you wherever you fall on those issues. I'll just tell you right now. But why am I not talking about those things in this video? Because it is my job to bring to you a message of hope and inspiration and healing that gives you something to feel good about as you move forward in your day. And those things, regardless of how we feel about them, those things begin to weary us with all of the bad news going on in our world. And I thought that maybe instead of dwelling on those a little bit further, maybe we could just stand to take in the sight of a beautiful Christmas tree and the story about how this particular tree that seemed to be unloved and homeless ended up bringing a lot of joy to a lot of people here in our church because it got a third or a fourth chance at life. That is why I talked about what I talked about today. I am not shirking those other issues. If you want to talk about them, make an appointment to come see me and we'll talk about them, and I'll tell you exactly how I feel about them. But I looked at it as my job to bring some gospel to you today. And so I hope that our little reflection upon the tree's new chance at life did that for you. I will see you all on Sunday, Oak Grove. Take care, God bless, and have a wonderful rest of your week.